fright as we put some extra distance between us and the elephant. Dennis, who had run slower than I in order to act as a decoy, had fallen down a hole and cracked a rib. I couldn't help blaming myself for this, and neither could he. Hemingway would have stood his ground, but he was armed with something more lethal than a Pentax.
God almighty, it's enormous, huh?
Now snap it close.
Is that all the way?
Well, it's good enough.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see, yeah.
Now when you want to fire...
Dennis's old friend Sam Weller still keeps a memento of the days when men were men and an elephant's foot was a potential umbrella stand.
Don't touch the trigger for the moment. Keep your finger alongside the trigger guard.
Okay, now push this top and push it forward.
Yes.
And it's...
Right. Now, keep your finger alongside the trigger guard and hold it and...
lean in slightly, do I?
And squeeze either trigger. Lean slightly into it and squeeze either trigger.
Christ. Oh, my, which trigger did I pull then?
I think you pulled the front trigger.
Yeah?
Lean into it.
Lean into it.
And hold it firmly into your shoulder.
I've never experienced anything like that.
Well done.
First of all, what did you say?
Well done.
I can't hear. Oh, God almighty. Ah! Are they hot? Yeah, they are, too. That was amazing.
Well, let's go and see if you've hit it.
Let's see if I can hit the box.
Even if I had missed, there was no denying that the rifle had something the camera hadn't. A charging buffalo whose breath smelt of onions would not stop if you said, hold that pose, but it might stop for a gun resembling two sections of the London Underground welded together.
That's not so.
Yes, that's right. Damn good shot.
It would have missed the buffalo's brain, though, wouldn't it?
No, it'll been fine.
Yes?
Damn good shot.
Now I would be ready if I should ever find myself face to face with an angry cardboard box.
Thanks a lot.
As my African safari went on, the aircraft we flew in got smaller and smaller, perhaps to reflect the fact that I was losing weight. Fear slims. I was toughening up and ready for harsher country, where the roads are often hard to distinguish from the surrounding landscape. If the road is made of rock, you're lucky. Sometimes the road turns into a mud bath. Buffalo like mud baths, but somebody has to get out and push the car. Dennis had thought for a while and picked me for the job.
Ah, shit! Ah. Come on, Clive! Get out of there!
The highly trained nose of Dennis had detected buffalo nearby.
What can a buffalo do to you if it gets annoyed?
Kill you.
Yeah?
Very much.
How does it do that?
Tosses you with his horn, or gets his horn into you.
Yeah.
Very much like a bull would.
Very masculine indeed. Yeah, certainly looks potent. It wouldn't be wise to be down there with him, would it?
I don't know, you never can tell with buffalo. They'll probably all run away.
Yeah,
we try?
9 times out of 10. Yes, I'm game, but maybe tomorrow.
After my encounter with old mudballs, I was sorry that I hadn't been allowed to keep that gun, but glad we would spend the night in a safari lodge. For a while I had had enough of the allegedly purifying effect of solitude and was keen to seek safety in numbers. The Kenyan tourist industry is booming so fast, however, that my allotted room left something to be desired. But the crocodiles were well rehearsed. They play a key role in the evening's entertainment for tourists. When the curtain goes up, the crocs come on for the floor show. They make a slow entrance and milk it for maximum drama. The tourists look on suitably awe-stricken from the front stalls. lucky program holder gets the opportunity to go on stage and toss the harmless beasts a few scraps. Dennis had told me that there was absolutely no danger involved in feeding crocodiles. Their stomachs can digest anything, so they don't suffer at all. For a while, they seemed satisfied with bare bones. Then I began to suspect that they would like something more meaty. I magically found myself back in the gallery. Suddenly, I felt much better about being mistaken for a tourist. The supposedly safe way to see wild animals in Africa is from a hot air balloon. I had been persuaded that to be raised high in the air by a diaphanous envelope filled by a naked flame is a safe way to travel. I had been persuaded of this by Dennis, who stayed at home in his tent applying a light alcoholic internal embrocation to his crack rib. So naturally, I was absolutely convinced.
Well, I'll be damned. It works.
Well, it's meant to.
That's fantastic.
The wildlife filmmaker Alan Root was almost killed starring in an underwater epic with a hippo as his leading lady. He flies tourist balloons over the Mara country as a means of financing more such ventures.
Is it safe, Disney?
Yeah, it's what, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Do they never fall down?
They fall down, yes, but they fall down quite slowly. I mean, we just turn into a very inefficient parachute.
What cloth is that bag made of?
It's nylon treated with polyurethane.
Why is it non-flammable?
Oh, it isn't.
Ah.
Well, it won't burn, but it'll melt. If we get hot enough, it just melts.
That's good news, yeah. I've got to do that.
Lighter than air, I liked being up here because the heavier wild animals were down there. I liked being up here as long as we stayed up here. Alan Root wasn't very reassuring on this point.
My most embarrassing moment is very obvious. I had Jackie Onassis, of all people, in the basket with me, and I just did the most disastrous landing I've ever done. I plowed through telephone wires, swung across a railway line with a train coming about half a mile away, and ended up tangled in a whole lot more telephone wires. And the basket just got completely locked into these wires and then dropped as the wires broke. It was like someone breaking a guitar. There was this ding, 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 ding of wires going, and down we went. And she had a very badly sprained ankle.
She probably thought it always happened.
Yeah. Well, any landing you can walk away from is meant to be a good one.
What's the effect of tourism on the animals? Good or bad?
Well, I suppose tourism brings in an enormous amount of foreign exchange, and conservation costs a lot of money, so tourism has to be good in that respect. But the problem is these days, in Kenya, it's pretty much out of control. I mean, tourism is just running wild.
Even the animals that are doing best under conservation aren't breeding as fast as the human beings. Are the animals going to be able to keep their land in the long run?
I don't think so, no. Talking about conservation problems is like rearranging the furniture on the Titanic, you know. I mean, when you've got that threat hanging over you, that is the problem. It's just population growth.
So these are really the last safaris coming up now, aren't they?
Well, it'll go on for some time because basically the government do want to preserve these areas, and they do earn a lot of money. And so I think they will continue to try to do so. But in the end, it's going to be a conflict between humans and animals for a lot of this land. And wherever there is that confrontation, people win.
If the gas ran out, it would be a difficult choice whether to crash land on terra firma or in the river. I hadn't forgotten old mud balls, but on the other hand, my ears were still ringing with the obscene sound effects of crocodiles masticating.
Beautiful big impala there.
As we came into land, I helped keep an eye out for the sort of party we didn't want to join. We didn't want to do a Jackie Onassis landing on a rhino's horn. It was time for breakfast, but we wanted to eat it, not be it.
Sharp horn. Secreting time.
Okay, fellas.
Oh, that's how interesting.
My last link with safety collapsed like a burning boat. Once again, we were down among the rough stuff. It was goodbye to gracious living.
More? I don't mind a bit.
Out here in the depths of the Dark Continent, it was too much to expect that the champagne glasses would be properly chilled, and the pâté de foie gras, though acceptable, would have raised eyebrows at Maxime's. But despite these hardships, there was no denying that I'd come to Africa for something more challenging than this. While we were fooling around with the cordon bleu cornflakes, more dedicated tourists were already out on the trail of the untamed animals. It was time to get back among the beasts. After a long search, I found the king of the beasts lurking incognito in a bush, but he wouldn't come out long enough for me to get a shot at him. Still, it was just me and the lion with nothing but an armored car to keep us apart, until the tourists turned up. As soon as the audience got big enough, the lion started posing away like Pia Zadora. Disgusted, I pushed off in search of something less preoccupied with its star status. Unfortunately, everybody else got the same idea. Further on, I found more lions. Everybody else found them too. It eventually struck me that everybody else thought we were everybody else. We all want to be alone with the animals, so we all end up with each other. Sometimes the animals themselves have no room to get into the act. There was a vague rumor that there might be a cheetah in the middle of all this, unless it was something less elusive, such as Raquel Welch lying naked on a rock. Cheetahs don't have to lie down long before being completely surrounded by people.
Is this their noonday sleep?
Their main peak hunting hours are about 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which is just about now, and at 5 o'clock in the evening. It is rather unfortunate that this is also the peak hours of the tourist viewing. So they are getting a certain amount of interference.
After we all got the cheetah's autographs, we all set off again. Everyone hoping to get away from everyone else for an intimate tete-a-tete with something big and a smaller circle of onlookers.
The little warthog's head's actually inside its throat.
She'll find a bit of shade, probably, and sit down and eat it.
Yeah.
I should think that tree ahead looks
God,
attractive to her.
I could reach out and touch her. That's just fantastic.
What's obviously going to happen is all those cars full of tourists are going to come and have a look at her now.
Oh, God, there's stacks of them. How do they know?
Not even a lioness should be expected to swallow a whole warthog in the middle of Wembley Stadium.
They ride faster than the vultures.
Yeah, they want to get in on the act.
I suppose that's us, too.
Oh, there's a big male on the right.
Where?
Do you see him? Do you see the big male?
Holy shit. It's Metro Goldwyn there.
Near view.
There's a big line coming up behind us, Dennis. Do you see it?
Yeah. This is a big female.
Jesus Christ, it's enormous. He's looking right at me. Hates me. He's going around the car. Are they clever? Can they work the locks of cars? Because they're awfully close to us now, aren't they?
I know they are.
I think we want to come in for a bit.
He's obviously the leader of this pride here.
Am I all right up here, Dennis?
I would tend to get down a little bit.
I'm tending to get down a lot.
While we watched him, he watched her from a safe distance. Just in case she should have thoughts of following lunch with dessert, we moved off a bit.
He doesn't seem to be terribly anxious to come and take the meat from her. From the size of his belly, I think he's already eaten.
Is he worried about us, do you think?
I don't think he's worried about us. These lions are
running
so
towards
used to
us.
people that I don't think
He's
it ever
running.
makes much difference. Now, he's got it, has he?
Away she went with what was left of the warthog.
He took it.
The male was clearly a macho chauvinist who believed that after a hard day of lying around in the sun, he should come home to find a meal on the table. He trailed her and we trailed them both, and the tourists trailed us until it grew dark and we all headed back to camp, sincerely hoping that whatever we were getting for supper, it wouldn't be baby warthog in a basket.
Moja. Billy. Tatu. Ine. Tanu.
Tano,
Sita.
Sita,
Saba.
Saba,
Nane.
Nane.
Next morning, with the aid of a local Keep Fit expert and graduate linguist, I prepared my body for the moment of truth. If I ever met a lion face to face, I would need to be fit, especially over the first 100 yards. The drums were saying, only a few seats left. But then one of the tourists left me with nagging doubts about my manhood.
How about this one? This one was...
Yeah. Yeah, well,
might retire that one, huh?
I think I'll stick with this because I think it's as big as I can handle, really. How do you hold that up?
Not easily.
What can you do with it?
Well, you could get a little farther away from the animals and have them not so
Can I
precious.
have a look through it?
Sure. Focus is right here.
God, oh, I think I'm looking right out of Kenya. What's that over there, Tanzania?
It was the Maasai again. They had a village nearby. We were invited to come and watch them dance in return for a substantial contribution to their pension fund. And a lot else that likes to eat cattle and people lives out here too. Maasai warriors must be able to kill anything, and they start early. There are cases on record of little children taking on a lion in single combat. That was the challenge then, to be 1/10 as brave as a 5-year-old boy with a toy spear. It didn't sound hard until I saw the lion. There was no reason why the lion shouldn't join us in the car if it really felt like it. Nevertheless, it was a throat-drying commitment to get down there with it on the grass. Dennis assured me that the lion had eaten recently and wouldn't want to dine again, that it was a famous ham actor and close friend of Donald Sinden, and that it had a Valium habit. I believed all this just long enough to make it seem as if I wasn't backpedaling. Unless you look very closely.
I wonder if we're doing the wise thing.
He's being a bit of a bastard.
He's waiting for us to get
He's
closer.
got one eye on us.
Do we think we're going back now?
He doesn't like us.
I think that's enough, don't you? Is that enough?
I would say it's quite enough.
I agree with that.
I never got especially close to the lion, but close enough